Hi, I'm going to show you how I do some of my enamel wall hangings. This is a picture of a sketch I've done of a whippet from behind, and another even less well rendered sketch of another whippet. But anyway, I'm going to do this one with the four legs, and I'll show you how I cut that out and enamel it, and show you basically how the enameling is done. And this is the same whippet. I basically scanned it into Adobe Illustrator and traced it so that the lines are clean, and then I cut it out and I have stuck it to a piece of sheet copper, and now I'm going to cut it out. Okay, I'm going to cut this dog out of the sheet copper now that's stuck on. I've drilled a couple of holes actually so that I can slide the blade in. There's one there, there, and this is called a bench peg. That's where I do all my sawing. This is the regular bog standard jewelry saw that I use for cutting everything out. I do have metal shears as well, various different types for cutting out much bigger pieces than this. Anyway, I won't cut the whole thing out while you're watching because you'd be bored to tears, but I shall start it. Start with the ear. Okay, I've nearly finished cutting out this dog. So I'm going to try and just get through it. Okay, finally my whippet has been cut out of its sheet, so that'll fit nice and tight in there. I had to drill quite a few more holes down at the bottom here, but that's okay. So that's gonna be enameled next. I'm gonna do the whippet. I think I'll do white with a grey spot just like the other one, or maybe I'll try orange. Anyway, I will see. Okay, I'm trying to show you more about this, but my parents' lurcher, who's staying with me at the moment, seems to be in the way of my tripod. Okay. Okay. So now I need to take all this paper off here. I'm going to take all this paper off, and then I'm going to have another rethink about the cut. Hi! Okay, sorry about that. My friends just came in. So yeah, I need to take this paper off, and it's, yeah, you don't want to see me doing that because that's just too boring for words. Okay, and then decide on the colors. This is my enameling table. Pots of colors. It's a little bit messy because I had a class in here the other day. Stencils, little paint brushes and that sort of thing. And here is my whippet that's going to be enameled. And I have this whippet sitting on 4 bottle tops. They just act as lifters so that once the enamel is on, I can lift it off. Okay, now I'm just going to switch on the expeller. Before I do the front, I'm actually going to do I'm going to do a little spritz on the back of the dog so I can do the counter enamel. I'm using this from Thompson Enamels A1, and I actually just put it into this old B12 bottle just because the sprayer is really good. And I'm literally just going to spray a little bit on it so that it sticks when I enamel it. Oops. Okay. And certainly for the first coat, both front and back, I'm going to use an 80 mesh sifter. Again, that's an 80 mesh sifter. It's quite an old one. I got these from Thompson Enamels too. They're really good. And I'm using white, just pure white. This is a leaded white. I'm not going to put too much on it. I want just so that it's covered and that you can't see the copper through it. Okay, I think that's fine. And then I'm going to turn it over and do the front. This is just a good base color. I use a lot of white in enameling because this particular white that I use, it's from Milton Bridge Enamels in England, but it has a lovely color. And what I also need to do is take out, I don't want the tail area to be completely covered, so I've got a dog pestering me here, so it's making my hand wobbly. This is the cut mark. I probably should have done this with a thicker blade actually, and then it would just fall right through. I think that's okay for now. Okay. Right. Now that's going to go into the kiln. Okay. The kiln is now at 800 degrees, and that's 800 degrees Celsius. And I'm about to put my whippet in. And I'm going to put that on for 2 minutes. I use just your regular kind of cooking timer. Actually, I won't put it in for 2 minutes. I'm going to put it in for 1.5 minutes. And this is, I've got a few other things queuing up here. This is ceramic fiberboard, which I use for things that are kind of an awkward shape, like those. I use ceramic fiberboard. Otherwise I use things like these trivets to put the pieces of copper on. They're made from steel, and these are the things you put them on to go into the kiln. And this one here has just one big trivet. Now, how much time have we got left? 43 seconds. What else can I show you in that time? That's a surgical mask. I use surgical masks instead of those 3M things because I find them really itchy and scratchy and they snap all the time. So surgical masks are great. This is one of my shears. It's really good. This is a drill press, which is also really good. That's for drilling big holes. These are some enamel pieces that are in need of assembly. There's a border collie. There's my original whippet. That's another whippet. That's, okay, here we go. Now, okay, that looks okay. And there we can see, you can see that it has a slight, now it usually takes about 10 seconds for the enamel to fuse properly once something comes out of the kiln, and then you can touch it. Now you have to touch it with tweezers or these barbecue prongs. So that's perfect. It'll need another coat of white anyway, but it looks good. And that'll stay hot for quite a long time. There's the back. Some of it came off the back, strangely. But that's alright. And then these things stay hot for a very long time as well, these trivets. Okay, so we'll let that cool down and then get on with the next thing. Now, because this Whippet has such long, thin legs, I'm just assembling them randomly there for a second. And I'm going to put it like this. Okay, I think that's all right. And then stick it in the kiln. Probably for, I don't know, another less than 2 minutes anyway. I'm going to just show you what the texture is like, or the surface is like. You can kind of see, I only had that in for 1.5 minutes, and you can see it has an orange peel look, which is good because I'm going to be firing this probably 2 or 3 times more. And if you allow it to fully fuse, now it is fully fused, but if you allow it to go shiny like glass, it can start burning around the edges when you're doing other colors. So the base colors I often don't fire fully until the very last firing, and then they all come together. So that's perfect. That's the surface as I want it. And I will show you also over here. This is the Jack Russell, which is in progress. So that, now I must have put very little white on, less than I'd intended. Anyway, that's the green color coming through. So this will need another coat of white. So you can see there's quite a big difference between the two. And that's the same white. So this is so far what we have of our Whippet Greyhound. So I'm trying to decide, I also want to make sure that it fits inside its piece of copper, and it does, so that's good. It's nice and tight as well, which is good. So now I'm torn between going for orange. I think I will go for orange. Orange with the same sort of bluish yellow background as the one on the right. We shall see. Holly, are you cozy in your bed? Good dog. Okay, I'm gonna get the orange done. And first of all, I'm gonna use red. I know that sounds strange. But I like to have a bit of variation in the colour, so it's not just one flat colour. I was contemplating using terracotta first, but I think I'm just going to go straight for the red. That's terracotta. You can see that. It's very dark, actually. That's the red beside it. Anyway, terracotta has its place. It's not my favourite colour, but it's a very good base colour for when you're using oranges and reds. Now, this is my stencil, which is, you know, kind of a multi-purpose stencil, as you can see. I've just placed it, I'm looking at this, I'm just making sure I place it in more or less the same place. And I'm using an eddy mesh sifter for this as well, because I want it to be fairly thick. And this red is, again, this is leaded. I mostly use leaded enamels. I just think that they're nicer, the colours are nicer. Now I know it's going out beyond the stencil, but I'm not going to worry too much about that because I can brush it off. And then I just use this is an oil painting spatula, I think that's what it's called. To lift the stencil. Thankfully my hands aren't too shaky. So that's the red, and what I'm going to do now is just get a brush like this, and brush off these bits that I don't want. I think that's okay. Okay, I think that's fine. So now I'm gonna enamel this again just for probably for a minute and a half, because red is strangely one of those colors that some colors burn off really fast. Reds, oranges, some yellows. So that happens with reds. So I'm not going to put this in for very long. This is the back of the background to the Whippet. And I'm going to just fire the back with enamel on it, and I'll show you why in a minute, because I want the front to get all oxidized. Okay. And I go around the outside first, because it always drops off the edges, it burns off the edges much more easily than in the center. And you should keep the sifter parallel. I don't always, but you should keep it parallel to the piece of work. I just put a coin in there because it was starting to get stuck in the sifter. As you sift, the big particles get stuck because they can't get through. And then you need to pour a bit more on, a bit more in. You need to make sure there's plenty of enamel on these kind of thin areas, because they can bend really easily. Okay, that's enough. And now I'm going to fire that, and I will show you that. Okay, I'm going to put the Whippet background onto this, and I'm not bothering to put it onto a trivet because I don't need to, because there's no enamel on the other side, so it's not going to stick to this piece of mesh. And because it's a big piece, I'll probably put it in for 2 minutes, take it out, turn it around, and put it in for another minute. The reason I would take it out and turn it around is because it's hotter at the back of the kiln than it is at the front, and so it can be slightly uneven. Right, 2 minutes. And then I will do these two, Jack Russell and the Whippet. Okay. Looks okay. Goes very black. The reds always go very black when they're really hot. So okay, now I'm going to show you what happens with this. I'm just going to give it a couple of seconds to cool down, and I will reach for the tongs. Okay, that's about 10 seconds or so. Now, okay, you see all that stuff? That is oxides coming up off the copper. And actually, if I get this, so that all pings off, I'm actually going to put this iron on top of it. And that'll cool it down. It'll cool it down and flatten it out a bit in case it got warped. And I'll show you what that looks like after I've finished with it. Now we have our Greyhound Whippet going back in. I'm only going to give that about a minute actually. Okay, it is, as you can see, the red goes really black too. That's good. It's not fully fused. Not well, it is fully fused, it's not fully fired. You can see it still has that orange peel texture, which is good because then the red doesn't burn off as much. Okay. Now hopefully here you can see what's happened with the background to the Whippet. That's all the copper oxides that have come off, and some of it's still a bit loose. And really what I wanted was to just get a few bits of dark copper that you'll be able to see through the transparent enamel that I'm going to put on it. It's kind of hard to see in this light. Let me see if I can move it. Is that a bit better? Those little dark bits, they can be really nice. Okay. So far, this is what we have. So there'll be quite a few more firings until we got what we really want. Oops, there. Okay, I'm going to use the orange now, so I have to get my stencil back on. And I have to try and make sure that it's exactly where the red is. Okay. Tangerine orange. It's one of my favorite colors. I use it for a lot of things. And with this you can, you don't have to completely cover it. I'm going to leave some of the red showing. There we go. And then I'll get my brush and brush this off. Okay. Right, now that'll go back into the kiln. This is how it looks after I've assembled it onto the trivets. The trivets are, because this is a piece of copper that has all sorts of long pieces, i.e. the legs, you have to try and make sure that everything is held up. You can't have one leg sort of drooping down. So that's how it looks. That's why I've got loads of different shapes and sizes of trivets. You can probably see that I, whoops, what am I doing here? I couldn't resist putting a couple of little orange beads. The beads are made from glass, that's why you can use them. They just fuse in to the enamel as well. They take a little bit longer actually than the enamel. But I just wanted to see actually what this dog looks like in that blue background. I quite like it. Here's the original one from that background, which I think is nice, but I actually think that the grey, I love the grey, but it may need to be in a different colored background. Anyhow, yeah, I like it so far. I have to do the background, and I have to do another, at least one more layer on the greyhound, because I want to have some apricot orange, which is a beautiful color. It's quite nice and pale, and I have to do the nose and the eye as well. Okay, thank you for watching.